So they tell me this is going to be live. Can you hear me? Good. We just have a very few brief minutes together today. I'll briefly introduce our panelists and tell you who we are. But we wanted to come together to show you what collaboration between big businesses like Intel, small businesses like TimberCon, headed by my vice chair, Eric Meslow, students like Savannah, math educators like Alan, and policy leaders like Dr. Rudy Crew can make happen when we are all focused on the same goals. So we want to spend just a few minutes today. I'm going to serve as moderator and let each person throw out a question to the rest of the group or hit one of the highlights that they'd like to stress about what we can be doing to create some systemic programs that we know will have dramatic impact on jobs, the economy, and career opportunities throughout Oregon. So Alan, I might start with you. Alan is a teacher at Colton High School. He's been referred to as the Renaissance Man because in addition to teaching math and chemistry, he's also the choir and the drama teacher. Is there anything else you're doing with your free time, Alan?
Actually, robotics coach.
And robotics coach.
Thank you for this opportunity. I guess the first thing I would say is this: thank you, Oregon business leaders, for being here, for taking the time, for believing that education is an important driver in our economy. The first comment I'd like to say, again, is thank you, Savannah, for being so eloquent and so articulate. The one thing that I was asked at lunch by some table mates was, how do you as a teacher inspire what goes on in your classroom? And the thing I would say is being here at these conferences is extraordinary because it gives me the opportunity to go back to my small rural high school and say, there are leaders in this state who believe in you. There are leaders that believe that technology and education and engineering and mathematics and science are worth the investment. So the thing that I would offer and ask you, as Savannah challenged you, is to do the following. Open your doors. When you are in conversation with educators, invite them in. Give them the opportunity to see what you do when it comes to STEM. If you have opportunity and it's not proprietary, give high school students the opportunities to come see what you do. If you want to inspire the next generation, let them see the potential.
Again, my name's Eric Meslow. I have a small company in Lake Oswego. My problems in regards to finding adequate staff are the number one issue holding my company back at this time. About a year ago, Jill and I were speaking about the fact that this very issue has been discussed for years. In the 1970s, some reports came out that said, you know, what America needs is definitely a focus on STEM education. Again, in the 80s, the 90s, and again in the 2000s, the same darn reports came out. It's time for this state to stop admiring the problem and start fixing the problem. So to help facilitate that, Jill and I founded the Oregon Employers STEM Coalition to act as a temporary body to lobby state legislators, the governor, and Dr. Rudy Crew to make STEM a priority in this next legislative session. And we're going to be putting forth a legislative concept in February that will specifically carve off funding so programs like Savannah's have a source of continuing funds.
Dr. Crew, do you want to talk a little bit about your direction to us on how we can ensure that all students have access to STEM opportunities?
Thank you very much. And again, let me thank everyone for their devotion, really, and attention to this issue. I think that we've got to actually, sort of understand that what this is going to mean is that there are elements of the work that have yet to really be developed on a system-wide basis. The math instruction, science instruction, in my judgment, is not necessarily at the level, I'm not talking about teacher-wise, but I'm talking about math as a policy for numbers of years. For example, a student should take mathematics. The level of mathematics and so on. All of those things have to be both looked at from a policy level and in many cases reinvented. I don't think necessarily that we have an adequate array of internship kind of opportunities, the kind of thing that Alan was talking about here a minute ago, where many more students see this as a pathway to their own career, and thus see you and the work that you do and the work that's done inside your companies as something that they can actually rise to the occasion and do, or even have networks that they would be a part of as a way of being able to go forward. And last and certainly not least, I think what Savannah said earlier about young women being able to be viewed as smart enough, cool enough, good enough, we got to send a very different message about what enough is. Enough is, I want in and you get in. Enough is, there are really good exemplary programs that are out there designed to go get kids in 6th grade, in 5th grade, and begin to bring them into the pipeline of STEM. And I don't care what community, I don't care what language, get all of that stuff out of our brain and ultimately say this is for any and every single person who is capable of being developed, and that means every single child in the state of Oregon. And we've got to be able to create a much different highway and a much different messaging about who and for whom this bell really does toll. So I think those things would be a good start.
And one of the points we want to make too, certainly with Dr. Crew's guidance, is to put the emphasis on the fact that all students, in order to be successful, need to have strong skills in science and math, even if they don't plan to go on to get a degree in STEM. There's hardly a profession that exists anymore today that doesn't involve technology and the application of math and science principles. I know that many of my colleagues here today from the building trades are participants, and they too tell me that they need students steeped in these subjects. So I just wanted to reiterate that the goal of the Oregon STEM Employer Coalition is to double the number of K-12 students proficient in math and science by 2025, and to double the number of STEM graduates in Oregon by 2025. So we've heard Dr. Crew use the action verb co-construct. We are but a small representative team of the group that wants to work with him most closely to help him flesh out what the function looks like and the form looks like as we move through this education reform debate, but we need your help as well. So if you're already a member of the Oregon STEM Employer Coalition, thank you. We're not a dues-paying organization. We have just come together for a short time to really get focused on the 2013 session and helping Dr. Crew and the governor keep this short-term focus on STEM and the economic value that flows from the students reaching those goals. So Savannah, is there anything you'd like to leave us with to inspire us at the end of our panel?
Well, all I can tell you guys is that it's important that you spend time with us kids. You really need to understand us in order to reach us. And I appreciate having this opportunity to share with you what I know and to be able to present my own experiences with STEM, and I really appreciate what you guys are working for.
Thank you. And the line for the potential sponsors for Savannah's Girls Get It program are meeting over here in the corner, and Intel will be the first company to sign up. So thank you.
I'm Malia Wasson, and I'm chair of the Oregon Business Council, and my day job is to be president of U.S. Bank here in Oregon and Southwest Washington. And it is my privilege to moderate the panel again of legislative leaders. Before I introduce them to you, I do want to mention the fact that for those of you who have been at past summits and seen me moderate the panel, you know that Peter Courtney and I spar a lot. And of course, I think I best him every year. But this year, he pulled an interesting tactic on me, and I think you'll know why when you see it. We are going to have Peter here virtually via video. And so you know what that means. He gets the last word. So with that, I would like to introduce our panel, starting with House Speaker-elect Tina Kotek. Just sit wherever you want. Next is Senate Majority Leader Diane Rosenbaum. Senate Republican Leader Ted Ferrioli. Anywhere you want. And last but not least, House Republican Leader Mike McLean. Okay, first of all, I like to start by acknowledging what these leaders do every day, and even the campaigning is not for the faint of heart. And so I want all of us to acknowledge what they do for us here in Oregon and thank them for stepping up and leading Oregon forward here. Okay, before we get to the business plan, I think our audience needs to get to know each of you a little bit better. So I'd like each of you to answer the question. For those in the room, what is something about your background that they might not know? And we're going to start with Speaker Kotek.
Thank you, Malia. I think the one thing that folks might not know, I think many of you know I worked at Oregon Food Bank and then was the policy director at Children First. Both of those jobs took me pretty much to every corner of the state. I had a program that I worked on studying the challenges of families in rural communities, and with the food bank, I would travel every quarter to some part of the state. The only part of the state I have not been to is the South Coast. So I think Representative Kathy McEwen is going to be inviting me out there really soon. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Senator Ferrioli.
Thank you, ma'am.
You've got some dirt in your background, I know.
Oh, well, you mean other than that?
I heard about that false arrest, by the way.
Other than joining the Witness Protection Program?
That's right.
Actually, one of the things that I think is surprising to people when they learn that I'm the senior member from rural Oregon, the most rural district, is that I was raised in Portland, went to Alameda grade school, graduated from Grant High School, and I'm a 1973 graduate of the University of Oregon before I migrated east. So I try to keep all that stuff secret while I'm representing rural Eastern Oregon.
Well, you do it well. Thank you. Senator Rosenbaum.
Thank you, Malia. I thought Ted was going to tell us that he's a really good singer and guitar player, which he also is. I'm Diane Rosenbaum. I got elected to the legislature in 1998 and served in the minority for 7 years. And actually, a little known fact about me, I was in the same freshman class with Jeff Merkley, and when he was elected to the U.S. Senate, I actually became the Speaker of the House because I was at the time the Speaker pro tem for exactly 10 days. It was the shortest reign, I believe, in the history of Oregon. There were no scandals. Everybody got along really well when I was the Speaker. And then I moved over and ran for the Senate, and I'm now starting into my 4th term. I've been the Senate Majority Leader for the last 2 years. And I have been married for 30 years. I celebrated my 30th wedding anniversary last summer, and it made me realize that I have been in the legislature now for almost half of my married life. Not sure my husband realizes that.
Okay, thank you. Representative McLean, you have to have some dirt in your background. Come on.
Well, none that statute of limitation has passed, so I'm going to move on.
Although you live on a farm. So
I do in Crook County.
That's dirty.
I grew up in Condon, Oregon, which is the jewel of Gillum County. It's 700 people. Had 14 kids in my graduating class. I'm the only member of the legislature that played 8-man football. We didn't have enough for an 11-man team. But when I was working in Portland for a downtown law firm, I took time off and helped to start a children's book company, and I wrote some children's books, one called Wooden Teeth and Jelly Beans, which is about American history and the presidents, and we had a show on CBS, and so...
I get the wooden teeth. I'm not sure about the jelly beans.
Well, that's Ronald Reagan.
Oh.
Besides, you would never eat jelly beans with wooden teeth.
Right.
It's kind of it's a play on words.
They advise against that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You've been great giving us some background on you all. So now we're going to get to it, and that is the Oregon Business Plan. So I'd like each of you to answer the question, what do you think the priorities are from your perspective regarding the Oregon Business Plan, and perhaps as it relates to the upcoming session? So we'll start with Representative Kotek.
Thanks, Malia. You know, you saw me earlier sitting here on the panel talking about the I-5 replacement, I-5 bridge replacement project, say that quickly. I'm excited about our opportunities around bonding here in the state. There's a lot of good proposals in the governor's budget around Connect Oregon 5, the I-5 bridge replacement project, the West Coast infrastructure project. Very excited about the opportunities around the Oregon Growth Board, providing further access to capital and strategically using the dollars we have around economic development here in the state. I think one of the important things for the next session, also part of the business plan, is continuing to work to have a stable and sustainable economy in our rural communities, particularly around the issues around water and some of the forest collaboratives, the state's biomass strategy. I think those are proposals that will get a lot of consideration and movement in the session. Very interested around career and technical education in terms of the education proposals and investments we need to make. And I think there are many things in the business plan we are all very excited to work on.
Great. Senator Ferrioli, is there anything left?
Well, there is. Besides the remaking of healthcare in the transformation project, the reforms in education and PERS and consideration of the Columbia River crossing, I think it's really important that everybody in Salem be reminded that in order to create $100 million in public revenue, you have to grow the private sector economy by $1 billion. So for each billion, we produce about $100 million in revenue, and that means that it's going to be really incumbent on legislators to do those things that remove obstacles to the growth and expansion of personal income, to remove obstacles to the growth and expansion of business opportunities, and to really focus on getting folks back to work in Oregon. All of our best aspirations for moving forward depend on stability in the economy and growth in the employment sectors. And all of our agenda items for the public sector depend on being able to produce the revenue that we need to fund that agenda. So it's all about jobs, it's all about removing obstacles, it's all about growing personal income, which is the source of our tax revenue in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Rosenbaum.
Thank you, Malia. I think for people in the Senate, there's a great deal of experience and a lot of accomplishments to be proud of, and I wanted to thank you and Duncan and everybody here for giving us a 10-year roadmap to try to be able to withstand tough times. We really have come through, and not totally through, but we have come through the hardest economy that any of us has ever seen since we've been alive. So I think for people in the Senate, for the 16 Senate Democrats that I represent, we are looking forward to those infrastructure investments. Obviously, there's strong bipartisan support for a transportation package, including the bridge. And I also think that the education work that has begun, making additional investments in higher education, as Tina has said, in vocational education, really are a path to escaping poverty and to being able to have a future where Oregonians can really look forward to good jobs and to be able to do one thing which I want to mention, which isn't in the business plan, and that is home ownership. I think it is actually something that we all need to commit to. If you look at the housing sector and how the collapse of housing in this country really is largely an underpinning of how we got into these bad times, then you look at the fact that people under 40, if they're lucky enough to own a home, about half of them are underwater on their mortgages. We will not be able to recover in Oregon unless we commit to taking on foreclosure, which we've done some good work on, and the housing crisis in general. I think that is one problem that it's a difficult one to step up to, but I would really urge people here to join us and figure it out.
Hear, hear. Okay, Representative McLean.
The part of the Oregon Business Plan that I personally am most excited about is the jobs part. I mean, clearly, without private sector jobs, we can't fund the projects that the governor wants to see happen, and those of us here. I thought Samantha made a good point, a remarkable student, I must say, and certainly I think everyone here had as much pride as I did watching her, in that we are producing students like this. And my son is a freshman at Willamette University, and one of the questions that he and his friends have for me is, when I get done with an education, can I work here, or do I have to go to North Dakota, or do I have to go to Texas? And I don't want to see my grandchildren grow up in another part of the United States because we failed to produce an economy which gave them a choice. It's not just about revenue, it's about our families. We've got to be about private sector jobs. And I think the Oregon Business Plan is doing a great job emphasizing what needs to be done, and I'm going to support it.
Okay, great. And before we break to Peter, is there anything else that you would like to add? Anybody?
We had one thing, I think, Senator Ferrioli and I, that Senator Ginny Burdick, I believe, is in the room. Are you here, Ginny?
Yes, she is.
And it is her birthday today.
Oh.
She's spending it with
happy
us.
Happy birthday to her.
And we have a bipartisan tradition in the Senate of singing happy birthday to senators.
Happy
birthday. Senator Burdick, stand, please.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jenny.
It's around.
Happy birthday to you.
Congratulations.
That's always been one of my
Okay.
goals in life, is to stand in front of a crowd and sing like that. So I thank you. That's part of the bucket list. Wow, I sang in front of 1,000 people. That was, and I apologize because I am the worst singer.
We all did that, and it turned into a round. If you noticed, that was a little ad lib there.
I think we
Thank you
harmonized.
very much
That was
for
really beautiful.
So I'll ask any other comments that you would like to make, or songs you would like to sing.
Well, I just wanted to say something because I think, Mike and I are going to be working together in the House, and we became friends on the floor during Mike's first session because, little known fact, our football teams were playing in a special league. So the Crook County Cowboys were playing the Roosevelt High School Rough Riders. They're no longer in the same football league, but we would share stories about our football teams. And I think one of the things that we have to remember here in this room is that the issues that are important to my students in North Portland are issues that are important to his students at Crook County High School. And we're all going to work together because, we are one state, and whatever we do is going to help my kids, going to help his kids, and Diane's kids, and Ted's kids in their schools. And that's our commitment when we come into session in January, because we have to work together and move the state forward.
Thank you. Senator.
Oregon has some bright spots. We've got opportunity in food production, grain exports, expansion of irrigated agriculture, energy production, including biomass, even some of the mainstays like forest products production, if we can solve some of the environmental problems. But what we are looking at also is that we know that infrastructure investment needs to be made to develop some of those opportunities. But infrastructure funding and public spending alone won't sustain Oregon's economy. So we really should be asking ourselves and listening carefully to you to tell us what it is that we can do to energize the private sector to help pull Oregon forward. The public sector has done a lot to help stabilize our economy through this terrible recessionary period, but it's the private sector that's going to pull us forward from here. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything?
I was waiting for the big round of applause for Senator Ferrioli on that. Well, I just want to say that, I get the privilege of representing the 26 House Republican members that will serve in this next term. And we have a very talented group. Bruce Hanna was a wonderful leader, and he's taken a step back and is a great mentor for me. But we're supportive of what you're doing. The Oregon Business Plan is, as the governor said, a unique thing amongst other states. Not every state has such a coordinated effort by the business community to support elected officials and to help us do our job, which in turn serves the communities we all live. So, you know, we don't get out of this without everyone doing their part, because whether, you know, whether you're elected or in business, whether you're on schools or in public service, the point is we're all in this together. And so what you've done here in the Oregon Business Plan is incredibly helpful. We're going to do our part to really advance its interests and work with the speaker designee and President Courtney and the rest to make sure that the things that we agree on, we're going to get done for our kids and our communities.
Great. And I hear a lot of support for the Oregon Business Plan from all four of you, and for that we are very thankful.